Hey, brand builders, ready to take your brand to the next level? I'm Dana Ammons, and welcome to the Brand Blueprint.
Hey, brand builders, welcome back to the Brand Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Dana Ammons, and today we have a dynamic guest joining us who is making waves in the wellness space with her early stage innovation, Ovease. Please welcome Deanna DeFelice, founder, operator, and a CPG veteran who is bringing purpose and community-driven insight into the center of her brand journey. Deanna, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dana. Thank you so much for having me on. I have been looking so forward to this.
No, listen, thank you. This has definitely been a interview that has been in the making for quite a while. We met earlier in 2024, and I was introduced to you through our relationship with the CIC. And as that started us, it also is part of our interview today because you are being featured as one of our key founders in our special CIC series. So let's start with our rapid fire question and answer segment. We want to give our audience a little opportunity to get to know you a little bit better by asking some questions that kind of tease out some things about you personally. So are you ready to get started?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right, great. Now, first question I always start with, and I love to understand about each one of the entrepreneurs I have on the show: coffee, tea, or something else in the morning to fuel your workday?
To fuel my workday, it's definitely coffee. Tea is always to wind down at the end of the night. But being born and raised just outside of Boston, coffee and yes, Dunkin' Donuts is my go-to. Absolutely.
So you are Dunkin' Donuts. Give me your typical order. You pull up to Dunkin' Donuts. What are you ordering for a quick run in the breakfast?
Sure. So this one's my claim to fame because I put together a concoction years ago and I learned that later it went viral on TikTok, but I swear I was doing it before it was cool. It's an iced Americano with 1 pump of blueberry and 1 pump of butter pecan. And it kind of
Whoa.
resembles like a blueberry pie. And you can do as many pumps as you see fit. I don't like my coffee too sweet, but this is my one.
No, I love that. So a pump of blueberry and a pump of pecan?
Butter pecan, yes.
Butter pecan? Man.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm almost thinking like, should I go try the ice cream version of that?
I
Right? Like
know, I know.
I'm
If you like your coffee sweet, then maybe. But yeah, that's been my go-to. And during COVID, I think when everyone was living on TikTok, I came across it and I thought, I've been doing this since before it was cool, but no one's going to believe me.
That's amazing. Now, listen, kind of related to that, but a very interesting follow-up question.
Mhm.
If you could have coffee and your favorite order with any entrepreneur or innovator,
Yeah.
living or dead, who would it be?
This one's easy. I don't even have to think about it. It would be Sarah Blakely. She
Ah,
is the founder and creator of Spanx.
yep, we know her well.
Yes,
Love
yes.
her as a founder.
Best. Yeah, she one time responded to me on social media. So it wasn't quite coffee or breaking bread over a meal, but that's the closest I've gotten, which was really cool. But I love her. She's a role model for me in so many ways. I think she is such an incredible example of what it means to really pave your own path and build
Mhm,
something from the ground up.
mhm, mhm.
And obviously, it goes without saying what incredible success she's been. And, Spanx really defines what the shapewear industry is. But I think amid all of her success, what's the most impressive to me is how she has maintained such kindness and
Yeah, I like
authenticity. And
agree.
she's very down to earth and grounded, which are all qualities that I value so highly.
No, shout out to Sarah Blakely. She is somebody I as well really admire, and I agree with your sentiment there. We neither one of us have met her in person,
Mhm.
but of the entrepreneurs that I follow and really admire, she comes across as very, very grounded
Mhm.
and very humble about her level of success and what she's been able to achieve. And I love that when I see that in founders because it gives me hope, right?
I
Everybody says, I'm not going to change. When I get to the top, I'm not going to change. I'm going to be the
Yes,
same person, right? And
yes,
you find out and you read so many stories about those who have made it that, that doesn't appear to actually, hold true, but it does seem
yes.
to be in her case. So I love that answer. Let's follow that up and talk a little bit more about your entrepreneurship journey. One book or resource that you've used along the way that's really helped you with your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So when I was a senior in college, I think it was, I read the book Start Something That Matters by Blake McCoskey.
Yeah.
And Blake is the founder of Tom's Shoes. And I remember where I was. I was sitting in the dining hall. I was graduating in a few months. And I was daunted by that question I think most college kids are daunted by, which is, what am I going to go do
What to
in the
do?
world now? Right. So I read his book and I learned about his journey leading up to Tom's, and then the mission behind Tom's and how philanthropy was really at the heart of his business model. And I learned about that buy one, give one business model. You purchase a pair of shoes and one is donated. And when I read that, I felt this wave of clarity come over me. And it felt like the light bulb went on. And I thought, okay, that's something I want to do someday. Is I want to build a brand, but I want it to help people and I want it to improve people's lives, whatever shape that might take. So reading that just upon graduating absolutely set the direction for where I wanted to see my career go.
Wow. I mean, a really cool answer, because I love that. I think it's a moment that all of us have had, right? At some point, if you've gone to college or any form of higher education and you're approaching graduation, you are always racked with that level of anxiety of, what
Yes.
am I going to do? Even if you were focused on, a specific path, and you've got the grades and you're coming out with a degree, there's
Yes.
still a lot of ambiguity there. So it does really help to have some inspiration in that time in your life. And it sounds like in your case, it really did change things for you.
It did. It changed the trajectory because you're viewed as an adult, but you're a kid. You're 20,
Mhm.
21 years old, and there's so much life you haven't experienced yet. And so while yes, I said, a brand is something I want to build someday, I also gave myself the room to look down different avenues and different paths. And I found myself revisiting that. And it's something that never left me. And so I was very fortunate in that respect. Right before graduation, I had a plan, but leading up to that, I envy my friends who always knew that they wanted to be a teacher at the age of 10. I always
I
envied them.
agree. I agree. I agree. I have always envied people who had it figured out. I remember distinctly leaving for college, and my mom, specifically saying, "Hey, so what do you think you're going to end up majoring in?" And I was like, "Mom, I don't know.
Mhm.
I'll get there, and I think I'll just figure it out, right?" But I think and I'm older than you, but when I was going into school, the thought process of being an undeclared major was like a non-starter, right?
Mhm.
Like, maybe things have changed, but in my age and stage, that was just like not cool. Like, people would look at you funny, like, you don't know what you're doing, right? Like, you're here, you're just like spending your parents' money, and like, you don't know what you're doing, right? And you're like, nah, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think, right, when I finally figured it out, it tied to some inspiration from high school. I was in FBLA. I was really good in my business and marketing classes. And so I thought, you know what would be better than to just continue what I already found some passion for in high school, and that's what landed me in marketing, and kind of the rest of the story. So I so agree with that. Now, follow up and last question: fun fact that people would not know about you.
Yes. So this one's a little wacky, but technically I was born with a different name.
Really?
Yes, and that's usually the response I get when I tell people that. But it's not as odd as it sounds. So when I was born, my name was Kristen Ann DeFelice.
Mhm.
And when I was still in the hospital, I was an infant, about a week or so after I was born. My mom looked at me and she said, she doesn't really look like a Kristen. She looks more like a Deanna. So now it's Deanna Marie DeFelice, and it's a running joke in my family till this day. In our group chat, my brothers will plug, Kristen, what do you want for dinner tonight? Or Kristen, what's your ETA? So yeah, that's my fun fact. Most people don't know.
Now, wait a minute. So I got a follow-up question. So wait a minute. Where are you at in the ages of your siblings? Are you oldest, middle, youngest? What are you?
No, I'm the youngest of five children. I have four older brothers. Yeah.
Youngest of five. So
Yes.
hey, hold on. I got a dog barking, but
Sure.
wait a minute. This is an amazing story. So youngest of five. So this
Yeah.
was the fifth time your mom had gone through this naming
Yes.
process, right?
Yes. But the first girl. So maybe she was putting more.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. First
Yeah.
girl. Now, hold on. A little bit more now. Help me follow this. Did it require a paperwork change? Like, has she already submitted your name on the birth certificate and they took it off, et cetera?
Yes.
Or was that still coming?
It required a paperwork change.
No way. So she had already sent the paperwork off.
Oh, yes. We had to go to City Hall and get the name changed, and I have both copies.
No way. That is an amazing story.
Yeah, my identity has always been Deanna, though, but it's just every time I do the icebreaker, truth, truth, and a lie, I usually win because people assume that's my lie, but it is my truth. And I don't like cats. That's usually that's my lie, that I like cats. Yeah.
Hey, you've got a perfect alias if you were ever to decide to like go into FBI or CIA, right? Like you could just use that name. That should at least at minimum be your hotel check-in name when you become famous. After Ovease like makes it, I'll know where to find you because I'll be like, yeah, I'm looking for Kristen. I'm not
right.
Right.
Well, I will say I do appreciate the alliteration of the name. I think it writes nicely and it's fun to do for my signature. So that's fun.
Great story, great question to end our rapid fire question and answer segment on. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
All right, so are you ready to jump into the main interview?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's get started. Look, I am so excited to share your story and your brand. And even though I am not a female and I don't have direct experience with period pain, I definitely, as a man who has been married and who has been a son to a faithful mom, I know what that looks like. Both my mom and my sisters struggled with pain during their periods, as well as my previous wife. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of the product, et cetera, but I want to start with your origin story. What inspired you to start Ovease? Like, what was the real insight that led to your aha moment? Like, man, I've got to do something about this.
Yeah, I can answer that from both kind of through the professional lens and the personal lens. So professionally, I had decided that a longer term goal was I wanted to build a brand. But for me, it was so important that whatever I put out into the world, I wanted it to help people. I wanted it to improve their lives in some way, shape, or form. And I didn't know what shape that would take, but I kind of trusted that one day when that idea came on me and when the puzzle pieces kind of fit, I would know when it was the right idea. And so I set that aside. And then through the more personal lens, Ovease was ultimately inspired by years of my personal struggle with very debilitative and chronic period pain that has ranged from physical agony to panic attacks to even fainting spells. And more often than not, my months have been very disrupted and my days come to a full halt. And it got to the point where I couldn't even get myself to work. And if I did get to work, more often than not, I would turn around and come right back home because the only place I felt real comfort and relief was being in bed and having that old school plug-in heating pad that our grandmothers used. And although it was great because I got the relief and the comfort that I needed, it still didn't allow me to go out and live my life and do the things I had to do, right? It still prohibited me. So just as a consumer, I started looking on the market for options that were more mobile and on the go. And the more I looked, I realized things really weren't checking the boxes that I needed to be checked. So either they weren't effective or it was a single use. You would buy it, wear it, and toss it. I found that oftentimes products were bulky. And most importantly, I found that they didn't fit me. They didn't accommodate to my size and my dimensions. And so that's where the light bulb kind of went off and that full circle moment of the puzzle pieces kind of coming together. And I thought, okay, here's a problem I know so intimately. And 80% of women who menstruate struggle with period pain. So I know it's a real problem. So I thought, why don't I build something that I can't find on the market?
Yeah.
So I wanted to create a solution that is truly size inclusive. And regardless of your size, you're getting the same level of comfort and something that is really seamless and effortless and can integrate into your life and give you comfort and ease, right? Physical ease and also the ease of just being able to integrate it and go on with your day and go to work.
Mental ease, yep.
Exactly, and mental ease and show up to life's demands that we need to. And so Ovease is a brand that's of course very personal to me, but it's also so much bigger than me. It's about creating something for women that empowers them and allows them to take control back of their days during a time that's often very vulnerable.
Yeah, amazing story, because as a man, I think we are, often very oblivious to the
Mhm.
pain and the discomfort that women suffered in that moment. And I think more importantly, what it sounds like is the market reflected a similar ignorance, right? Like if I could be so bold, I don't know and haven't studied the history of products in this category, but something tells me that there was likely a lack of solutions, primarily because in many of these innovation rooms, you are primarily dealing with male,
Mhm.
right, innovators and product creators who are not necessarily familiar with that
Certainly.
particular, pain and problem. So talk to me about, you've recognized this opportunity.
Mhm.
You've already kind of started forming what could be a potential solution.
Yes.
How do you make that leap to the next step of, okay, I'm going to actually go after this and make it a business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the idea for Ovease and I actually sat on it for about a year. And that 12 months was really chalked up just to fear. And I eventually realized that there's not going to be a morning where I wake up, look myself in the mirror and say, okay, today's the day I feel completely ready.
Mhm.
It's not going to happen. And if you wait for that day, you'll be waiting forever.
Wow, that was a really important point. Can we hear that again?
So I had the idea for Ovease and I actually sat on it for about a year. And that 12 months was really chalked up just to fear. And I eventually realized that there's not going to be a morning where I wake up, look myself in the mirror and say, okay, today's the day I feel completely ready.
Mhm.
It's not going to happen. And if you wait for that day, you'll be waiting forever.
Mhm.
So, I got to a place where I had to either be really serious about this and move forward with it. And if I wasn't serious, I just needed to move on and figure out what was next. And so for me, I'm a very visual person and I kind of envisioned three paths. So there was path A, B, and C. Path A was pursuing something that was a bit more corporate and traditional. Path B was perhaps starting at another startup and being on a team somewhere. And then path C was pursuing Ovease.
Mhm.
So I knew that path A didn't make a lot of sense for me. Something more corporate, personally, I didn't see it for my career trajectory. So I eliminated that. And then I was torn between join another startup or pursue Ovease. And I knew that if I had joined somewhere else, I think in my heart of hearts, I would always resent that and wonder why I didn't go after something that I was passionate about and that
Mhm.
I finally really believed in and in a space that I knew so intimately. And so that was my process of elimination. I'm certainly oversimplifying what that process was. It really was a year of mental tennis and a lot of self reflection and contemplation. But I got to a place where my excitement for where this thing could go really eclipsed my fear of failing. I was tired of feeling afraid. And so once I was more excited than afraid, I knew that was the point I had to move forward with this.
I love that. I love that. That definitely, I think, defines a lot of entrepreneurs' initial journey, right?
Mhm.
It is riddled with anxiety and
Mhm.
fear. And we want founders to know that they can push through that initial anxiety and fear to get to the other side and really get momentum, headed in the right direction. But I
Mhm.
want to also stay a little bit there, in the sense that you have a very rich background in CPG and direct to consumer brands. And I want you to talk a little bit about what that actually did for you and how it informed
Mhm.
your overall process as a founder and starting this brand.
Yeah, absolutely. So right out of school, I knew that I wasn't ready to go start my own company. I was still far too inexperienced. So I purposely designed my early career just to get me in rooms that I could learn the industry inside and out. I didn't care in what function. I just wanted to learn and be a sponge. So the first role that came my way was with a direct-to-consumer e-commerce brand, and the opportunity happened to be on the operations team. And I've always said, for anyone that wants to learn any industry inside and out, to be on the ops team, because you truly work with every touch point of the business. You work with every department in the company very intimately. So my day-to-days were supply chain and fulfillment and distribution logistics. But with that, you need to understand what are the considerations and priorities from accounting, from finance, from marketing, from product. So I would say so early in my career, I was exposed very quickly to having to be that chameleon, because when you're a founder, of course, you are every department and you have to chameleon all the hats, and you have to be able to pivot sometimes by the minute or second. And so I think by being so exposed early on was really good for me. And another example, working with this company, they were middle market, but they operated very much like a startup. And so they really encouraged everybody to bring their ideas to the table, whether that was someone in their early career like myself or a 20-year industry vet. They wanted to hear from everybody, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And in that role, I had to be really scrappy and roll up my sleeves. And I think just, again, being so exposed to an environment like that when you're so young and moldable, it definitely primed me with the skills I needed to become a founder. Until this day, I am so thankful for that experience, because there are hard and soft skills I learned in those years that I carry with me now.
Well, look, Deanna, kudos to you for going through it with intention, though, right? Because I think, to your point, even if you're just there in the corporate environment right now and you're listening to the show or watching Deanna, and you're wondering to yourself, well, that could be me. Maybe I could also benefit from and take some of these skill sets that I'm learning now, transition those into skills that I'll need as a founder. Not so much, I think, a top of mind thought process for a lot of corporate employees right now, but the fact that you, before you went in the building, said, hey, I want to go get the skill sets and be in the rooms that are going to prepare me for an eventual role as a founder. It's just such amazing foresight and attention on your part. I really think that is a phenomenal way of approaching it. And so now you've got that knowledge, and like you said before, it's never perfect, and there's never a great a day that you get up and you go, man, today I think sun's up, sky's blue. This is a day to found a company, right? So tell me a little bit about what made you, or where you started, and then tell our audience a little bit about what that first initial product offering and brand looked like.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I first started, honestly, I would be up until 3 a.m. and I would just be playing with different, making fake websites and putting literally pen to paper in notebooks. And for me, I wanted to create something that was really size inclusive. And so it was really kind of deep diving, like, what are different size ranges, and what type of materials are compatible for women who have their period and don't want something constricting or super heavy. And so it really started with understanding what is not in the market that I want to see. And I use those data points as my North Star in creating something. And so this was something that, again, was pen to paper. I didn't go public about it in an official capacity. It was something I still lived with. And I call this kind of a universe moment. I happened to just be on LinkedIn, and I saw applications were due for the Cambridge Innovation Center Accelerator program for underrepresented founders. And it, of course, caught my eye, and I looked at it, and applications were due the next day. And all I had was a working logo. I had pen to paper, a working logo on Canva, and that was it. And I said, okay, I have to go after this. This is kind of what I call that universe moment of right place, right time.
Yeah.
So I threw together a pitch deck overnight and submitted it and interviewed with the incredible team at CIC, and somehow was accepted into the program. And that really was that bridge of talking about it with like friends and family and people that you felt comfortable with, and you had no, you know, you weren't hesitant to talk about it with people that you knew. But it was that bridge to get me to talk about it to the public and start teasing through it with the public. And had the CIC Accelerator not come my way in that time, I don't know where Ovease would be right now, but it was that perfect opportunity that I needed at the time to kind of formalize this thing and see where it could go.
I love that. I mean, because to your point, I mean, getting to that stage of being able to share the idea with public and get real feedback, I think is so critical to the growth, and the early stage growth of a brand. So talk a little bit more about some of the biggest challenges that you found in the early prototyping phase of your product, because as you described it, especially focusing on size inclusivity, I imagine there were quite a few challenges along the way of figuring out a way to really achieve that, right? So how did you approach it?
Absolutely. So I think, funny enough, the sizing, it wasn't as much the challenge, because being so close to the problem and knowing it so intimately, knowing what my dimensions are, knowing what other women's dimensions are through conversations, that part came a bit more naturally. I think what is more difficult, because it's ongoing, is I haven't built a product from the ground up ever. And so with that comes so many learning curves. And I have the business background, I have strategy, ops, and a branding background, but I'm not technically trained. And parts of my product, there are technical components to it. And so I always say, be really self-aware. And as a founder, you need to know what you know and know what you don't know, and be quick to identify those strengths and weaknesses. And weaknesses aren't a negative thing. I view it as an opportunity to kind of connect with folks.
Whoa, we need to hear that one more time.
I always say, be really self-aware. And as a founder, you need to know what you know and know what you don't know, and be quick to identify those strengths and weaknesses. And weaknesses aren't a negative thing. I view it as an opportunity to kind of connect with folks. And I found in the Accelerator program that could fill those gaps for me, and be able to sit down and kind of give me a crash course 101 on how certain mechanics work. And so I think that's been the biggest challenge, just not being technically trained. You have an idea for something and you want to jump in and start building it, but you don't have that skill set to do that. So it requires a little bit of patience, but a whole lot of learning.
I love it. I love it. And you're right. I mean, I'm going to basically rewind this portion of the interview to replay that piece of advice you gave, because I find so many founders struggle with that ability to be humble enough to really say, hey, this is what I'm good at. And these are the areas that I'm not good at. And I need somebody to come in and help. And you said it perfectly. If you need to rephrase it as this is an opportunity for me to learn. If you're a founder who wants to be optimistic about that approach, by all means do it. But I think the bottom line message is you can't do it by yourself.
No.
Right. And I think that's, if you look at Deanna's achievements, you look at any of our founders that we have on the show, especially as they come out of programs like the CIC, that is indicative of the reality that it takes a real network and a lot of resources to bring a really good product idea to the market. And as you think about it, Deanna, I mean, you've benefited obviously from being in some of these systems in these rooms, but you also were intentional about getting the skill sets that you needed so that when you got in the room, you were able to perform and you were able to really deliver for your brand, right?
Absolutely.
So talk about a little bit about, because I think, as founders walk through, listen to your process and they kind of compare it and go, okay, I see how she approached it. I want to, kind of, get in there and get started too. And there are some technical things, and a lot of founders right now are doing technical things in spaces where either it requires code writing or it requires electronics or circuit boards and things like that. Mm-hmm. How did you work around those specific technical facets of your brand and product that you weren't an expert on, but you obviously needed to figure out a way to innovate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely leveraged the Accelerator program, and I was lucky enough to meet with engineers where I could sit down and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking. Is this viable? Is this difficult? What is the cost to this? Give me a little bit of a course crash in understanding this. And once I left the Accelerator program, I'm now at a place where I am continuing to iterate, continuing to prototype, but I haven't built just yet. So I will be building soon. And my first go at it is going to be a more scrappy version, kind of calling back to my time in my past life, having to be really scrappy. And I am building it just myself, just based on the knowledge that the folks I've met with have ingrained in me. So I'll be building it that way and then putting it on women and getting their feedback and making sure that they wear it for a long period of time and can give me their honest feedback. And then based on that, I'm going to iterate from there. And when I need to start taking that prototype to the next level, that's where I'll be seeking out potentially contractors or manufacturing partners who bring that skill set to the table. Because as you mentioned before, Dana, knowing what you don't know and what you do know, you have to be really vulnerable as a founder, because I can't pretend I'm technically trained. It's going to get me nowhere, and the mask will come off and you'll be sought out eventually. Like you have to be really vulnerable and honest. And so you need to call the right people to the table to help you move that along. And so that will be my next phase of Ovease. Once I build my scrappy version of it, and then be able to have something tangible to bring to potential partners and collaborators, and then they can kind of tease out a more formal version of that prototype.
I love that. I mean, you are using collaboration on the product development side, not just with experts in their respective fields on the technical aspects of the product. But what I also love is you are engaging the community in the development of the product. Talk a little bit about that in terms of like, how did you recruit, engage, get women to try on a product around a subject that some women, I would imagine, were probably not really comfortable having a conversation with somebody about, or really sharing the details of the pain and discomfort that they go through. Like a lot of founders, I find, Deanna, don't want to talk to people. They don't want to share the idea. And ostensibly, sometimes I hear my idea is so dope, Dana. It's so cool that if I share it, somebody's going to steal it. And then, so I'm not going to share it until I'm absolutely ready to launch. And I'm like, you can't launch before you actually have gotten consumer feedback. So talk about that. Like, how did you do it?
Right. I have a lot of comments on also kind of thinking your first product is your baby and holding that so closely. And I'm happy to get to that too.
Hey, look at my baby.
Yes. And you don't want anyone to critique it, poke it, or prod it. But and I'm happy to get to that.
Nobody wants to have their baby called ugly, right?
No, absolutely not. But yeah, for me, so when I came up with Ovease, I designed it based on my experience and my pain points, both literally and figuratively. And the reality is I'm not creating this for me. I am creating it for me, but I'm also creating it for the billion women out there who suffer from this, right? And so it would be creating a product for such a large community. It would be irresponsible of me to assume what people need, right? I know what I would need, but you can't make assumptions. Everyone knows what happens when you make assumptions. But what you can do is you can map out a set of hypotheses, which is what I did. These are my educated assumptions that I will make. And I put together a market research survey. You can do it for free. You can do it on Google Docs or Google Forms. It's called Free Online Survey. So you can do it really bootstrapped as well. And I put this survey together, and the whole purpose behind it was for women to come to me, tell me what are their challenges, what do they use? What is working for them? What's not? And I found, Dana, that actually women are really, really excited to talk about it and really open to talking about it. So basically I've been taking their responses and allowing those to either confirm those hypotheses I made or reject them. And at the end of the day, what these women are telling me is going to directly influence where the prototype ends up going from here. And I know that there will be a number of iterations, but because Ovease is more than a product, we are a community. And I want it to be a space where women feel comfortable and open about talking about their experiences. So that has been my priority in this phase, is hearing from as many women as I can to help inform where this product can go. And then for founders who are, emotionally attached to that baby and are a little bit too subjective and attached to it, I just really, I give the advice to be open to all feedback and not only hone in on what you want to hear, and be really open-minded, because, oftentimes founders do what's called confirmation bias. And if people tell you what you want to hear, you double down on it and hone in on it. And then if they tell you what you don't want to hear, you kind of turn a blind eye to it. And I just really recommend founders steering away from that as much as they can, to really make sure that you're creating a product that's not a nice to have, but a must have for your consumers.
I love that. And I would ask as a follow-up question at Deanna, did you find early on when you did start receiving that feedback, did it counter what your initial assumptions were? Was it vastly different than what you initially thought you would find? Like, what sort of aha moments did you have after you opened it up to public discourse, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually found that, of course, women's experiences will be very unique to them. It's not a one size fits all. But I really identified a lot of trends that confirmed my educated assumptions. And I think that's being so close to the problem. And of course, there will be outliers, but I did find a lot of trends. And I would also say that you will get negative feedback. I mean, that it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It really is. But what I would say is, my survey was very open-ended purposefully, because I wanted people to tell me what they wanted to see in something. And you'll get feedback where you see it and you say, okay, that's really not where we're going with the product. You appreciate it, but it's just not aligned with really where you see the company going. And so my advice to founders is, you don't have to be everything for everyone. You can, really take all feedback seriously, but don't try to, check every box for everyone, because that's not realistic, and that can actually hold back your timeline and what you try to put out into the world.
Eloise, can you bring that back one more time? We need to hear that again.
My advice to founders is, you don't have to be everything for everyone. You can, really take all feedback seriously, but don't try to, check every box for everyone, because that's not realistic, and that can actually hold back your timeline and what you try to put out into the world.
Man, that's a very, very poignant piece of advice, because, founder burnout is real, right? And taking on too much is a real danger for most founders. As we talked about earlier, founders wear multiple hats, right? You have to be very adept at learning new things quickly on the fly, right? And there are times when that can be a bit overwhelming. And you seem to make a practice out of being, finding ways to be comfortable in uncomfortable moments and uncomfortable processes. As you think about your journey and how you have kind of progressed with Ovease so far, what would you say has been key to that ability to just be comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Yeah, Dana, I think you said it perfectly. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because in startup land, whether you are a founder or on a team, you are faced with discomfort every day. It's basically a part of the job description, right? And that can look different. That can be holding an investor conversation or doing a pitch for the first time or interviewing potential supplier partners, and you've never done that before. And you're questioning, okay, what do I ask and what do I vet, right? But what comes from those more unpredictable, uncomfortable moments inevitably is always self-growth. And I think it's only human nature to crave what's comfortable because it's predictable. But the slippery slope there is if you let that go on for too long, it will turn into complacency. And so something that an exercise I've kind of done with myself is I like to look in the past and I like to look forward. And when I look in the past, I say, when's the last time I did something new? When's the last time I felt nerves in my stomach or, we've all felt that where you're a little
butterflies.
Yep. Exactly. Butterflies. And if it's been a little too long since I felt that feeling, it's a sign to me that I have to challenge myself again. Right. And then I also look to the future and I say, if I continue to do what I'm doing today, my habits today, every day for the next year, will I be where I want to go in 1 year from now? And if the answer to that is no, if I realize that my routine isn't really getting me where I want to go, that's also a sign for me that I need to challenge myself. And there's a quote I love. I'll butcher it a bit, but it's along the lines of life starts when you step out of your comfort zone. And, that comfort zone can look different to everyone. One example that jumps out to me is I am as introverted as they come. And about a few years back, there was a startup conference here in Boston and I didn't have anyone to go with. And I thought, oh God, I can't go alone, right? Who am I going to talk to? I have nothing to offer, which I wish I could shake my past self and tell her that I do have stuff to offer. Yeah. So what I ended up doing was just logging in to the Zoom links that came with the conference. And I ended up just tuning in remote and I did what was comfortable and I did what was safe. And from that, I made no new connections and I had no meaningful conversations. And so I made it a point the following year to go and go in person. And now the thought of going to things alone, it doesn't even shake me. And I think that's the cool part about, it's a small example, but making yourself, put yourself out there. I think the coolest thing is looking back at things that used to scare you, don't even shake you anymore.
That's amazing growth, right? And I think the recognition of looking past and then looking forward. I love that exercise because I think a lot of us do it maybe informally, right? Subconsciously, but not with any structure and try to pull something out of it. Right. And I love the fact that you're checking for your own commitment to do things that, create that new feeling for you. I have a similar kind of motto that I like to try to do something every day that makes me afraid, something that I'm afraid of doing or that I'm fearful of doing or that feels risky. Right. Yes. And that could be as simple for me as jumping on my mountain bike and trying out a new trail or something that I feel like might be a little bit above my technical skill set. But it gives me a chance to kind of get my adrenaline flowing and really, push myself. And I think to your point, even if it is directionally with your brand, right, where you may not have initially wanted to meet with a particular service provider or vendor, or maybe you wanted to kind of continue to hold that particular part of the brand growth. And now you're realizing like, I need to, delegate, I need to share something. That's taking a risk. It's doing something different and getting out of your normal routine. And so I love that advice.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up the interview, I want to have you talk a little bit more about what's next for Ovease, what's coming down the pipe. I know you are working on multiple fronts to get that prototype to market. So tell our audience, a little bit more about where they should expect to see from Ovease over the next year or two.
Yeah. I would love to answer that kind of with our short-term goal as well as my long-term vision for the brand. So in the short term, we are starting to build that first prototype, and it will be my hands building it, very scrappy. And right now I'm really prioritizing collecting as much data as I can. And you can find my market research survey on our website, ovease.com. You can also find it on our Instagram, Ovease Official, and on our LinkedIn page, which is also just Ovease. And right now, I just want to hear from as many people as I can. So if there are listeners who have dealt with period pain or know somebody who has, I encourage you to complete the survey. It's really quick. 10 questions. It will take you about 2 minutes. And your responses will directly drive where these iterations of the prototype go. And for the long term, ultimately, Ovease exists to improve women's lives and to empower women. And there are a number of local nonprofit organizations here in Boston that actually share that same mission, whether it's from housing accessibility to job readiness or empowerment programs. And so we're not there just yet, but upon launch, it's very important to me that I have a clear plan as to how Ovease can be a pillar of support for these organizations here in Boston. And longer term, I would love to also be able to serve and support other organizations in other communities that are doing incredible work for women as well.
I love that. And I would like to just add an additional endorsement to our male audience. I would say husbands,
Yes.
fathers, brothers, sons who are also acutely aware of these issues. And you know who I'm talking to, because we all know that if there is somebody in that woman's life who she's sharing this discomfort and pain with on a pretty consistent basis, it's some of us knuckleheads out there. So make sure you are referring and sharing Deanna's information with your significant loved one in your life. Have them go out and fill out the survey. Go to her Instagram page, and we will be sharing this information for this episode on our website as well. We will have a profile page for Deanna. You can click on all of her social media handles, and you can also look down in the show notes of this episode and find that link there as well. So don't hesitate to share. This is an important cause. This is the kind of brand that I am passionate about. It is a social impact brand that's not just out trying to make a buck, but make a difference in people's lives. And that is what we are really grateful for, to have founders like Deanna who are out there delivering on unmet needs in the consumer market. So Deanna, I so appreciate you taking time to jump on the show and share so much about your exciting journey in creating Ovease. Before we go again, I know you just shared your socials and everything else, but I do want to give you an opportunity to have a last shout out to our audience and just an appeal for your brand and what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dana. I appreciate your advocacy. It means so much to me. There's such irony in that I'm building a period brand, and I am one of 5 with all brothers. So I had to get very comfortable early on talking about it, and my family have been my number one cheerleaders in my support system.
Shout out to your 4 brothers. Yes, I'd love to meet those 4 guys one day and just high five each of them myself, because I think, again, I cannot say enough how much, and I know my audience knows this. So you watch me, you know how much I'm passionate about these issues, especially when it comes to gender equality. But this one I'm so passionate about, because I, for years, like a lot of guys, just kind of shrugged it off as, hey, it's something that you deal with every month, figure it out, right? Kind of attitude. It's like, I got my thing, you got your thing figured out. I think a lot of men, unfortunately and insensitively, approach it that way. In some cases, just because transparently the communication's not there. Like, we don't know what we don't know. We're not being told exactly what's going on or how painful it is. But I think once you know, then you need to do your best to support. And so here's a great opportunity that us as men can do to support our women by referring them to a brand like Ovease. So I would like to end on that front. I will definitely be one of the first purchasers. This sounds like a great opportunity for me to just go out and grab some for the various women in my life. So I'm looking forward to the product launch, and I'll be a supporter of the brand as long as you are out there pushing Ovease.
Thank you so much, Dana. I appreciate your support, and it was such a pleasure to talk with you today.
No, thank you. And again, For our audience, make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're everywhere you need to be. And remember, you can also go out after this episode on the brandblueprint.biz, not .com, because we're about that biz. But go out on the website, check out this episode and other founders as well. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe to our feeds so you can find and receive more great interviews like the one that we've had today with Deanna. Thanks again for joining us on the Brand Blueprint podcast. Have a great week. And remember, these lessons are here for you to learn from, grow from, and ultimately earn from. All right. Have a great one.
Thanks for joining us on the Brand Blueprint journey. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay updated. Watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel for an in-depth experience. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at thebrandblueprint.biz for exclusive content and materials. We're everywhere you need us to be.